Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Wedding Ceremony Podcast. We talk about anything and everything that has to do with wedding ceremonies. My name is Clint, and with me is a gentleman that, well, I don't know if you know this or not, but he's from the Bronx, J.P. Reynolds.
Hey, Clint, good to be with you and with Desiree.
Ah, you mentioned Desiree, our special guest. That's right. It's a special guest episode of the Wedding Ceremony Podcast. I'm so excited because I was lucky enough to be on her podcast a couple of years ago, and she is a professional through and through. She is Desiree Adams. Desiree, how are you?
Thank you so much, Clint, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're excited to have you here. Tell everybody what you do.
I am, like you mentioned, a professional wedding planner and coordinator and designer. We plan luxury events in the Northeast primarily, but I also have a wedding planning podcast, like you mentioned. So I'm the host of the Ask the Planner podcast. Primarily, it started out for couples, but we have a lot of professionals that listen to the show too. So happy to be here.
Oh, we're very happy to have you here. Before we go any further, you should all know that JP is an accomplished author. His books are in the Amazon store and the Kindle store in Amazon. He also is a communications expert. Thebusinessofconfidence.com is that website. His wedding website is jprweddings.com. My website is Clint Huft, my name, CLINTHUFFT.com for all the things that I do. Desiree, a lot of our audience are professional wedding officiants. Obviously, when we tell the stories of what we've been going through on a weekly basis, it resonates with all the professionals. How long have you been doing what you do?
In weddings specifically, 7 years, but in events for, I don't know, almost 20 years.
20 years. What'd you do
Oh,
before you
wow.
did weddings?
Special events, inaugural balls, galas, fundraisers in DC primarily, but we traveled. So the production aspect of an event has been near and dear to my heart for a long time.
It is kind of the same ball game, isn't it? I mean, in terms of getting everything where it's supposed to be, everybody where they're supposed to be. Have you found that be true when you transitioned into weddings?
It really is very, very similar because to me, the wedding is kind of like a show, which we would put on. So you would have your speakers, you would have your VIPs, you would have your guests, you have the main stakeholders, and so it's just centered around a different goal, but primarily it's still very similar to what we did in DC.
In regards to weddings and what you said about special events, I just interviewed for a different podcast a very successful event planner who is down in Georgia. And she
Mhm.
said something, and JP, I thought of you immediately. She said, officiants are important. Without an officiant, it's just a dinner party. JP, is there anything top of mind that you want to ask Desiree?
What is one thing that an officiant can do, should do to help make your life as a planner easier and smoother?
The number one thing, which wouldn't surprise you, is to prepare and to plan ahead. I love it when the officiants take time and start planning the ceremony with their couples further away. I think sometimes when we'll talk about it later, and they start planning it 2 or 3 months before the wedding, maybe less. This is the whole reason why we're having this event, and it seems like it's almost an afterthought for them. So I would rather they spend time ahead, even if it's just giving the couple some homework to think about things, and then really putting together a thoughtful script, a thoughtful ceremony. I think and then having it done in advance. I think it's very, very important to have it all thought out, have it workshopped and finalized with a couple weeks in advance so that we can take the script, everything that they're saying, and put it into our format, make sure it flows with what we have timed out with the music. Do we have all of the cues? Because I think sometimes they see it, which is important, they see it as the ceremony, they're bringing two people together, they're going through the vows, etc. But they have a very important job as the MC of that part of the event. And so thinking about asking us to sit down, reminding people to stand up, like those kinds of directional things that guests need that maybe an officiant who is more new to the arena will not think about, but they're the only ones that can do that. And so we can be on the sideline telling them, hey, you forgot, whatever. But if they give us time in advance to look through their notes and see what they're going to say, we can be able to identify where there maybe are some holes of the logistical elements that they perhaps overlooked.
It's amazing to me that an officiant wouldn't start working on the ceremony immediately. That just boggles my mind. GP, have you ever heard of somebody who said, I don't need to start with the ceremony right away? They'll wait until maybe 2 months out. That sounds ridiculous to me.
Well, as you know, I've heard of more ridiculous things, but uh, by the time I've completed my first meeting with a couple, we all have a very clear sense of what this ceremony can look like. So we've got a very foundational roadmap. I work from that, they work from that, etc. It amazes me, and I'm sure you encounter this, Desiree, of for how many couples the ceremony simply is not important. We're going to
Right.
have entertainment before the dinner party. It's not uncommon for me to have an event planner reach out to me 2 or 3 months before the ceremony and say either the drunken college roommate has backed out of being the officiant, oh, the couple forgot, just like literally forgot to get somebody. I would say 3/4 of my weddings are for couples who are on schedule, who are well planned. But I would say a full fourth of my weddings are for couples who were missing something. What is it? No, we have the napkins, we have the silverware. Something else. What is it?
I think part of it is that the industry focuses a lot on the aesthetics and the design and, making sure it's very, very pretty. But I always tell couple, this is the whole reason we're bringing everybody together. This is it. And so when they say, even to me, we have a friend who's going to do it, and I'm not really worried. I don't think we're going to have any readings. I don't think we're going to have anybody speak. It gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And by the end, I'm like, is it going to be even 10 minutes long? Because this is the whole reason. And I think it's sad because, that's why we're all getting together. And so it's interesting how I think it's changed. And I feel like it hasn't been like that in the past.
When you say the past, more than 7 years ago, or what I'm
Yeah.
hearing you say is that you're kind of agreeing with JP that there's certain couples that they don't understand the emotional significance of the ceremony itself.
I think that people see it as an opportunity to have a party, which it is, but I think they're missing the reason why we're getting together. And I think they're putting more emphasis on the party aspect as opposed to this is a union between two people, which is very, very important, and the significance behind that. It's like the reception is the reason why we're doing this, not the union between two people. And you don't have to be religious. It's just this is what, the actual ceremony of putting you guys together, which I feel like has lost its significance. And so that's why people put less emphasis on it. And then it becomes something that an afterthought that people forgot to plan.
My favorite, Clint, do you have this where? So I always begin by, is there anything you know you do want, anything you know you don't want, anything that you've seen and you thought was lovely, or that you saw and you thought, oh my God, never at my wedding. So they laugh, and then there's the pause. They look at each other, debate who's going to go first. Right? I would say the top two answers are number one, well, we don't want it to be long. And of course, long is one of those words, what is long? All right. That for some people, 8 minutes is long. And then the other one is, well, we definitely don't want to say vows. I can't tell you. Do you get people who do that? I cannot tell you how many people say we don't want to do vows. And then I have to be very gentle. And as I take my hand and let me explain what this is all about. I am very loosey-goosey. Call me old-fashioned. But if it's a wedding, I've got to hear. There are certain words I've got to hear. But what they mean is, then they say, oh, yeah, no, that's okay. When, the traditional, it's like they don't want to write their own vows.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting. For some couples, they come from family backgrounds that were affiliated with some form of organized religion. And even though they have rejected much of that organized religion, they were exposed to ceremony, ritual. And for other couples who have no religious background, they've not experienced what ceremony can be like, what ceremony can do when it's done well. So I divide them into those two categories. In my earlier years, I was a Catholic priest. I resigned from ministry years ago. But I love the couples who have Catholic backgrounds and who just rant and rave about the church, which is fine. And then when it comes time for the ceremony, it's like, wow, you can take the boy out of the church, but you can't take the church out. They're just there. They have this instinctual understanding of the whole process.
I think it's interesting that JP that you use the word ceremony as a different kind of noun because I think right because there's a wedding ceremony and it's like a thing, but I think the way you use it, which is that they're used to ceremony meaning something with gravitas and something that has weight to it, people aren't so used to because if they don't see it or see it done well or see it have
Mhm.
meaning, they just think it's like overly stuffy or not them or like too old fashioned. But you're getting together with somebody. You're saying you're going to be together for the rest of your life. I feel like it needs some ceremony.
Well, it's the power of gathering. And that's, Clint, what you and I do is we call people to the moment. And it's the love that makes it special, that makes it sacred. And that's what we do. We're love gatherers.
Yes. Love gatherers. That's going on the t-shirt. I like that. Sometimes I feel like that moment is necessary to bring people to their focus. And so all I say is thank you for coming. A lot of people could have been invited, but you made the cut. And for some reason that cuts right through it. It always gets a laugh, but I can feel them now zone in. I said, I just need you to be right here, right now. And I touched the couple's hands because they're holding hands right in front of me, right here, right now. And that energy that all of a sudden comes through the couple, that's the best way that I found over all the years to get that kind of focus outside of shh, sit down, which I just had to do Saturday. Everything's starting and there are people still standing chatting with each other outside of the rows of chairs. And normally I will say, please silence your phones. And JB and I have talked about that, how we come forward. So it's more of we're talking directly to the guests now. The ceremony hasn't really begun. And we'll say, please silence your phones and however we do that. But in this particular case, I realized I have to use the microphone. Well, you know how it is when you're at an event and they're talking and they're not paying attention to you. They don't care who you are. They're just. So over the microphone, I just went, shh. And for some reason that worked. That worked really well. I very quietly, very softly said, please take your seats. We're going to start now. But the shh right at the beginning, oh my gosh, it was like a miracle. It was all of a sudden they all turned like they were back in third grade, like, oh,
You've raised an interesting point there, Clint. You said I don't think we indicated that you were right now in Rochester. Yes, Desiree? Yeah.
Correct. Yes. I
And
don't think we mentioned that, but yes. Mhm.
yeah, I have found now I've lived out here in California for, eons, but my roots are in the East Coast and I have family, friends back there. I have found out here that if the couple have New York roots and if the guests are East Coast, the guests behave in a different way from West Coast guests. East Coast people are very disciplined. If the invitation says, 4:30, I am stunned at how at 4:20 people are starting to go to their seats. I have spoken to event planners out here and they're like, and I said, oh, they're from the East Coast. Okay. And last October, my niece got married in the Berkshires at Edith Wharton's summer
Oh.
mansion, all East Coast. And I thought, wow, there would be no, please be serious. That wedding was starting at 4:30. Everybody was like, I mean, the music started at 4:31. I find it very interesting, Clint. Yes.
JP and I have both married people from all over the world, a lot of interfaith, multicultural type of thing. And I love it when one person in the couple, either one of them, will say, oh, yeah, but they'll be late because they're on, and then they'll name some part of the world.
Right.
They're on this time or that time,
Right.
Philippine time, whatever it is. And that's supposed to make me understand that time is flexible and laws of time and physics don't work the same on a wedding day. And we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. That's the feeling that I get.
It's so interesting how, so we're East Coast and I was in, DC. So it's like DC Secret Service, like very East Coast. So our ceremony time, whatever, 4:35. We start what I call theater time, which is always 5 minutes late. So we know people are going to be late. So we're going to give them some buffer. So to us, we're starting on time because it's 5 minutes. It's according to our schedule. But it does blow my mind. So we're pretty good at, keeping everyone on schedule. But sometimes I'm floored and I really should pay attention to see, where these people are from. How some people will be in the bathroom and they're 20 minutes late to the ceremony. And, a lot of ours are outside or outdoors, and you can't sneak like a church, you can sneak into the back of the church and no one will notice. I'm Catholic too. So we
Okay.
did that this the past weekend because we had children. But like, when you're in an outdoor ceremony and you're far away and there's nothing going on, you can't sneak in. I just don't understand. And yeah, so when we have couples that are so and so is going to be late, we need to plan for that, da da da. We do take that into account, but usually we try to manage that ahead of time. If it's someone in the wedding party or parents, we have somebody that's on them that's going to know, and we try to move things along. I think it's rude to say, okay, if the ceremony start time is 4:30, I say there are going to be people there at 4 o'clock, 4:10, and I don't think it's fair to punish them because they were early on time because somebody else is going to be on their own schedule, and you're going to start 20 minutes late because those people that were there on time are now waiting for almost an hour.
Oh
So
my gosh, we're kindred spirits, you and I, Desiree. Oh my gosh, because here on the West Coast, the norm invitation time is 5 o'clock, but the ceremony is scheduled for 5:30. That's the norm, and I always tell people I'm getting there an hour before the invitation time because what if everybody shows up? Oh, no, no, no. The worst case scenario, in my opinion, just imagine, and you know how this is, you have somebody that is home getting ready to come to your wedding and they're freaking out. They're screaming at each other because they think they're going to be late because they think the invitation time is 5 o'clock. They have no idea about that ceremony being a half hour later. No, they think that they have, and they don't want to disrespect you. They don't want to embarrass the family. They're driving there like bat out of hell.
traffic. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. All their stuff, but they're screaming at each other in the car and they're sweating and they're so stressed out. They walk up at the ceremony and they think to themselves, "Oh my God, we're only a minute late. We're only a minute late. Oh, I hope I can sneak in." And then somebody says, "Oh, it wasn't going to start until 5:30 anyway." You're going to start your wedding with people just pissed off at you right off the bat. And so this whole thing that you and JP are talking about, where no, 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 everybody's on time. I don't even know what that world looks like. I think it's awesome, and I kind of wish that I was more in that world. But that's the way it is out here.
And I think there are, I'm Filipino and we can say this. And there's jokes about the Filipino community. They're like, I'm on my way. And, they're still in the shower. But I think I love them. Not everyone is there. And I think if we know published invitation time and ceremony start time, but I don't think they should waver from super far apart because not everyone understands that. Or if you tell them we're going to start late, they're going to come even later. Then everything gets behind and then you're just always trying to catch up. So I mean, we do what we can. Obviously, we're going to be flexible if something happens and we try to make up for it. But I think at least trying to start as close as possible to that published time, planning ahead for people that may not be on the same page is the best thing we can try to do.
I do understand if there's a VIP and there's some kind of a delay. I'll actually bring that up to the couple. Is there anybody who is so important that we can't start the ceremony without them being there? And if they say, yeah, I said, and is that person chronically late? Sometimes, all right, well, here's what you do. You call that person, and only the couple can really be effective with this. The couple calls that person directly and says, say exactly what I'm about to tell you. Number one, you mean the world to me. Just start with that. You mean the world to me. I'm so happy and honored that you're going to be at my wedding. I was wondering if you could get there an hour and a half early so that you can help us with, and then you just make something up. Just make something up to give them a reason to be there early. And I said, and then after that, after all of that preparation, setting the scene ahead of time, if they're late, that's on them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's smart. Or even planning for, we're going to have photos. I want you there for the photos. They're going to be at the church or wherever ahead of time so that they're there and then have somebody on that person that knows, okay, I'm on this person. If they wander, they go to the bathroom, we know where they are so that we can usher them along.
So to speak.
I am, Desiree, I am New York Irish Catholic. We
Mhm.
are a people unto ourselves. Clint, I will spare you Desiree stories of my family, but I love what Clint was just saying. Like, oh yeah, in my family, if we did that phone call, it just would not fly. But you got to try everything. But what all of this does for all of our laughter, I think what we're really speaking about is how a wedding celebration is a culturally influenced experience.
Absolutely.
And culture includes ethnicity and nationality, religion, but just also the rituals of family, geographical rituals, because there is this, I see a very distinct difference between East Coast, West Coast. But also, it may be that traditionally, East Coast, you have a tradition of, I mean, the East Coast is dotted with churches. So there's a history of people for the important moments in life going into a church building and having certain expectations of what is and is not to be expected, what is and is not appropriate. And out here, well, I'm giving up surf time. So, yeah, you mean there's no drinks before this thing? I need a drink. Where's it? No, I don't want, cucumber water.
Or the couple that says, I don't know anything about weddings. I've only been to 2 of them in my life. And I think,
right.
Okay, we're playing a different ball game now. Here we go.
Yes, yes. So it is all cultural. It permeates every aspect of the celebration.
Absolutely.
It does. It does.
Desiree, you're spectacular. This has been great. And I feel like we could talk for hours and hours and hours, but we're not going to, out of respect to you and your time. So before we go, I know there's going to be people that are going to want to reach out to you. What's the best way for them to do that?
So the best way, so socially, we're on Instagram. So our wedding planning company is Verve Event Co. And then if they want to listen to the podcast or connect with me that way, it's Ask the Planner Podcast on Instagram. And then website is Verve Event Co. That's V as in Victor, ERVE eventco.com. And we would love to hear from you.
And it's a singular event. There's no S on the end of that.
It is. Correct. Yeah. It is. That's why yes.
JP, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you.
jprweddings.com. Can email me directly from there. And social is always JPR Weddings.
The communication coaching is the businessofconfidence.com for that website. And remember, his books are in the Amazon store and in the Kindle store in Amazon. My website is Clint Huff, CLINTHUFFT.com for all the things that I do. That's it for this episode of the Wedding Ceremony Podcast. This is Clint, and on behalf of JP and Desiree, we will see you next time.